Welcome to Liberate University.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Liberate University. Today I have my dear friend Annelise, and she is a Reiki practitioner, wellness coach, really getting in from everything from yoga. I mean, what don't you do really? I mean, you really help people from coaching from business to spiritual growth to, energy healings and everything in between. And, we're really going through a state of transition right now. And a lot of people are seeking answers. They're seeking what can they hold on to in this time of uncertainty, and how can they prepare themselves to go through this adjusting period of time. And so I thought, what better than to have a conversation about adaptability and transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, with everything that's going on globally, there has been so many things that we've individually been confronted with about, where we really are within ourselves and how that is existing within the external reality. And I think that the biggest theme that I've been seeing come up over the last couple of months as we've been in this pandemic has been a lot to do with really becoming your inner authority and really allowing yourself an opportunity to start to take account of, where in my life am I being disempowered? Where am I not really, running my own ship, or whatever you want to call it, and just allowing myself to kind of exist in certain structures or systems where I'm not really able to experience the life that I want to have. And it's incredible because as we're kind of being confronted with some of these themes, there's a huge rise in duality that we've been seeing with this.
Oh, huge. I mean, there's the opposite polarities kind of magnifying, where you're seeing, one of that, which I think is of no surprise to anybody, is knowing that we're going to have a bigger even separation of rich and poor, right? The rich are getting richer in this period of time, the poor are getting poorer. There's like this duality magnification that's happening there. Mm-hmm. And then
that's the external magnification.
And then on the internal, there's people that are just feeling stuck in quicksand in darkness, and then people that are really shedding away layers and voyaging their life.
Yeah, I just think that the polarity from an internal perspective, which I think is always at the end of the day really what you want to focus on more than the externals. The externals are important to look at because they are an indication of what is going on underneath the scene, right? Yeah. But the internal thing the internal polarity is a real thing right now. And I know everyone's been experiencing it and they've been seeing it in various ways, where it's like, on one hand, there's a huge grouping of people that have really understood, although that this is a totally tragic period in time and people are dying, and that goes without being said. We know that, that there's also a lot of opportunity and just a lot of opportunity to redirect and, like I was saying earlier, become an inner authority within themselves, and to really use this time as a way to really make some big changes that maybe you've always wanted to, or maybe haven't had the time to, or whatever. But then the opposing of that, right? Yeah. This is just like law, right? Star Wars talks about this a lot, where it's like, whenever there is a battle of sorts at hand, you're always going to see the rise in the light, right? The people that are really hearing the call to make the transition, to adjust in the direction that the universe is moving, to really level up within themselves and, go through the transition. But there's also always going to be the rise in people who resist it. Yeah. And really struggle through it and want to hold on more to how things were and want to go more into control than surrender. And this is where I think it's really important to focus on or not even focus on, but just start to educate yourself on the energetic components of what that really means inside. Where do you sit with that? And it's not going to be so black and white for everyone.
Yeah. But when you were saying that, it made me think of the analogy of somebody literally in quicksand, and not that I've ever been sinking in the quicksand, but the way it's depicted in the movies and the cartoons. Yeah. But if somebody's trying to get out more, it's literally they're sinking faster.
Oh, totally.
And and that's what when you were explaining that, I just seen this little like cartoon guy going dee 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 dee, and he would dee 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 dee.
And I think it's such an incredible point that you're making, because for 100%, and you're already seeing it. I know personally, I've been experiencing it where, it again, like I said, it's not so black and white. Like in certain areas, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so ready to step into that and receive it and surrender and like let this in and allow for these transitions. But there are other components within myself where I'm like, no, like that's how it's supposed to be, and I can't let that go, and how do I do this? And it can be confusing. But the reason why I illuminate that is because in the areas where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and let that sand suck me down and see what happens, because I'm here, right? Like I already know that fighting it isn't going to solve it. Yeah. Like we know that. So what's incredible is when I've allowed myself to do that, that's where, oh my gosh, like so much success and so much transition and so much just magic is able to now meet you. And so a huge thing that comes with this is, and this was something I started to experience energetically and see in my clients, was like around April, this huge component of learning how to receive. Yeah. And like really allowing yourself to receive by surrendering. So like letting go of control to allow for a new foundation to come in that's so much bigger than what your cognitive awareness can imagine for yourself. And that was a huge thing that was coming through, which was really beautiful. But then on the opposing of that, there's like the areas where I've held on and I see my clients holding on and like really struggling to let the dissolve of certain things go. This is where you'll energetically just start to feel yourself draining, and you'll start to see tons of conflict where conflict does not need to be. And it's amazing because it is so heightened right now. It's
in every area of life. And I mean, I think a good example of that I'm pretty sure every single person that's watching this podcast at one point in your life had maybe a past relationship that you held on to and you overstressed after it was ended, and how energetically draining was that attachment, and how much did it waste your mental thought patterns, you were holding on to something that used to be, and that idealization of that, and you were missing out on being present. And in that metaphor, what you were also missing out on was the opportunity for somebody better to walk in, right? And I think that looking at that for life right now, I get it. We might never have the same society again. We might never have the same type of social gatherings and different things. I get that there's attachment to that. But the harder you attach to that and cling to it, what if we create something way better? What if there's more enjoyable like opportunities that are going to be more fulfilling in your soul, that our creative species can invent and engineer for our enjoyment that is more satisfying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really important thing, though, to focus with that is because I'm sure so many of you, like myself included, from time to time are like, okay, but how? Like, how do I let go? Like, what? I get what I need to let go of, but I'm stuck in those patterns. So I think that a really important thing that is something I've studied so many different modalities. I've tried it all. I've been like extraordinarily disciplined with things, and then I've backpedaled on that and been a lot more free with things until I kind of found like just a nice little rhythm of things that work, and certain tools that are very beneficial to help get yourself through reoccurring patterns, choices, just like energetic, karmic things that you pull into your experience. And I say this because I think just a fundamental baseline that's really important with this acknowledgement of what are you holding on to that's congesting the space for you to move forward is understanding that whatever you might be confronting right now that is difficult, and maybe you're just becoming aware of it, or maybe you've been aware of it for a long time and you're like, oh, this again, like why? Because the important thing and the way to start really shifting it is to understand that those problems, if you want to call it that, or those negative emotions, if you want to call it that, attachments, whatever, those are actually not your burdens. They're your They're your opportunities to grow and expand. They're what you're meant to transmute. So if you can start to change the narrative about what those are in your life, and start looking at these things as like, okay, here we are again, but this is not something I need to be shameful of, or something that I need to like run away from, or something that is
I
just
need to wish out of my system.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm this horrible person, or this thing is just like the death of me. You're never going to be able to solve it. You're never going to be able to get over it, because it's not a sustainable platform to actually change, because you're trying to fight darkness with darkness, and it's never going to work. So instead, I really challenge those of you that are watching this as we are going through these transitions to really start greeting your obstacles as your opportunities, and really change the narrative of what is going on. Like, okay, like this is it. And that's going to give you an energetic platform that is so much more sustainable to really make the change. And it just gives you so much more energy and fuel to not just give you the change, but it also gives you the opportunity to just rewrite the relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And honestly, if you're having a hard time grabbing a hold of how you're viewing these things as opportunities, there's so many experiences in your past that I guarantee if you did just a rewind through the photo album of your life right now, that you would say at the times that you were going through it, you didn't understand how it was an opportunity for you. You thought it was a horrible situation, or you didn't understand why you were stuck in it. But now that you're moved beyond it, you look back and you see how it was one of the best things that ever happened to you, or that it led you down a certain path, or it gave you this learning, or whatever the case may be. But if you can train your mind and do what Annelise is saying immediately, and stop making it wrong, and say, okay, well, there's not poor me, how does this serve me? And then, like she's saying, what is the opportunity? How does this serve me? What is the opportunity? Then you're embracing it.
Yeah.
Then it's becoming like if you go and work out and you want to like lift more or do something or challenge yourself, you're looking at it, if it's difficult, it's actually good, because you're pushing yourself to the next limit.
Totally. And to speak on that again, as we said earlier, what exists on the other side of this obstacle? And instead, again, of being like, this is killing me and taking my energy and drowning me and I can't get out, again, just to reiterate, approaching it from, okay, what is on the other side of this obstacle is so much better than I've ever allowed myself to be able to receive before.
Yeah, it's like when you go and work out, you know that you're going to get in shape, or you're going to be able to run that whatever distance, or do that marathon, or whatever the case may be, or get stronger or lift more, whatever. So you push yourself because you see that you're going to benefit.
Exactly. And it comes back to the underlying issue, which I'm seeing as like a very foundational thing through this period of transition, which comes back to receiving. And a lot of it has to do with, we can get attached to our obstacles. And this is just like a neuron network in the brain. Like, you can get attached to your patterns. We know that. Like, as your normal, as your self-identity, as like the way you see, you get tunnel visioned into your operating system. And I think this is why, well, I don't think, this is why people have been struggling so hard, and myself included. I'm sure Cristina at some points as well, in various components. We're all human. But it's so important to understand that we are going to, it's just really important that you approach all of your obstacles right now that you're being asked to review and look at and transition, and understand like what is on the other side of this. And is this really just about learning to love myself more and learning how to receive and opening up to a bigger level of energy? Because when you don't, this is where it's like, if you think about how energy works, right? And you're holding on, as Cristina was saying earlier, like congesting the energy field with things, attachments, things that you think are valuable, things that you think are, whatever, like serving you or the best that you can have. At that moment, you are instantly denying yourself of the unknowns. You're instantly denying yourself of life. And so if we're not living and thriving, then we are dying, and we are going through erosion and death. And so it's important to realize that when you do that as well, it's like all of this energy is still trying to reach you. It's still trying to come in and be like, no, like you deserve more. Like, and it will just keep hitting you in the head. So I'm sure many of you have realized that maybe some of the things that have literally been the biggest obstacles of your life, like up to this point, or if certainly in the last 7 years, they're all at the forefront right now. Every single one of those things, like every little freaking detail that you can think of is at the forefront. And that is the point. So,
and with what Annelise is saying, and I think that, you saying that you've been there from time to time, I've been there, everybody, what I want people to take away from this is that if life is like a game and we're constantly leveling up, we constantly have to continue to challenge ourselves. We constantly have to be facing new obstacles. And that means that we're constantly getting to the next level in life.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I know a lot of people say, oh, not another thing, or, oh my God, I just got done with this and now here's this again. And when is it going to just get easy and be joyous? Honestly, I don't think you'd be happy if it was. If it was smooth rainbows and butterflies every day, because then you wouldn't be evolving. And like, you were just saying, if you're not evolving and growing, you're decaying and dying.
Yeah, and for sure. Did you have something?
No. But just the point being that, just know that no matter you get through an obstacle, there's going to be another obstacle, and there's going to be another obstacle. But when you stop viewing it as something negative, and you look at it how it's building you, growing you, and evolving you, you are going to greet them with joy.
Yeah, and even changing like the internal narrative or the language around like you are using the word obstacle, which is actually a great word. Like when I hear obstacle, I think of Indiana Jones, which is fun. But I really want to challenge some of you who, and again, like I said, like we all have it, to just also like check your language. What is the internal narrative around what these things are that you are going through, and making just a simple adjustment of like, okay, this is something that's coming up right now. If I'm finding myself here again, or maybe I'm finding myself dealing with this for the first time, whatever, so be it. I know this is a bit repetitive, but like, okay, well, what is the opportunity in this? Mm-hmm. What is this trying to show me? Where can I make adjustments out of my tunnel vision and the way that I do things to really open up and receive? Again, it comes back to this receiving component. So
now, is there anything that you would recommend for people to take the theory of shifting the perception and do some type of tactical thing to have that experience of it?
Tactical being how? Like an actual practice?
Like a practice, something that somebody can do to help them get to a state where they can start to reprogram their mind as an opportunity instead of an obstacle, or look at that, or move beyond the attachment of the past. Is there any kind of advice that you can give people that could be something that they do, or a process that they go through to get there?
Yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as right or wrong, and there's no one-way path. We are energetic beings. We are, we have chakra systems that plug into different vibrational frequencies. So it's going to, like, one person's truth is going to be another person's lie. It's just all in perspective and energetic poles. This is the first thing I want people to be aware of, because I think that there can be a lot of self-judgment and thinking like there's like certain ways to do things, and that will bring you to a place of enlightenment and peace, and like people will like break their backs trying to do those things, and like, I don't understand. Like I meditated every single day. Like I ate right and I'm still wanting to cry. Like, what's going on? And they think that something's wrong with them, or they're broken, or those things don't work for them, and then they go further into their struggles. So first, just internalize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's the first thing. The second thing is there are tools that you can do to help change the neuron networks in the brain, to help adjust the energy. There's so many ways to do that, and whatever you're ready for, wherever you're at, you'll find it. You'll know. And so for me, one of the things is, as I was saying earlier, like there are times when I've been like crazy disciplined on mental stuff, where it's like very regimented mindfulness visualizations to help stimulate new neural networks in the brain, to reprogram the subconscious, identifying the root causes of where some of these limiting beliefs and limiting emotions came from. That can be as a result results of traumas and conditionings in this lifetime and also past lifetimes. Like, yeah, that's a real thing, as crazy as it is. It's real. And so it just is. We're in 2020, you guys. Got to start accepting that things are not what they seem. It's true.
At all, and there's so much more that I could uncover.
There's so much more than meets the eye.
Since we only see this much of a color spectrum out there.
Yeah, you can't even see the coronavirus, and it's killing everything. So anyways, whole nother subject. To bring it back, yes, so I offer what's called alignment coaching, which helps you identify your limiting patterns and beliefs and where they came from and addresses some of the root causes. And then I take you through guided mindfulness visualization meditations that help stimulate new neural networks in the brain. And that's a great tool to use to just give yourself an opportunity to stay consistent with the way that you want to be experiencing yourself. So that's one component. I know that Cristina offers hypnotherapy as a solution, which is, it does rewire your subconscious brain.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimate reprogramming there. But I mean, like, even you can do outside of, like, just on your own, being really clear on what it is that you want and stop focusing on what you don't want and start having that powerful intention and narrative of taking a little step each day to work towards those goals. I think mindfulness and visualizations and things like that in the morning are really good. Walks. How can you just start to design your day that sets up as your ideal perspective of where you want to go, or starts shifting you if you notice that there's something that you do habitually that puts you in a really negative state of mind, or you notice that you go down a wormhole with it. How can you pull yourself and avoid that experience so that you don't enter back into that state? Because we are so programmed, and everything in our life will be a trigger. We are triggered for positive or triggered for negative, right? And so if there is a certain spot that you sit on the couch at 4 o'clock and you do something, or you watch this thing, and you know that always triggers you into this wormhole that afterwards you're in an irritated mood and you're hating your life, how do we get you to not sit in that spot at 4 o'clock? You know, I mean, it can be as simple as that, because if you never sit there, you're never going to do that next thing because you're triggered to go there, and that pattern leads you to the next, which leads you to the next, and before you know it, you're in the avalanche, right? You know, so it's like the simplest little change can be the biggest shift in your life.
Yeah, and that actually, I would love to expand on that, because you said something in the start of that, which is like mindfulness is a great way. So what the heck does mindfulness mean? Because it's such a loose term.
That's a buzzword.
It's a buzzword, but it actually means something. So, mindful of awareness. So all it really means is you start to observe yourself almost in the third person. You start to observe your behaviors, your triggers, your reactivity to certain things from a third person perspective. And that's what meditation helps you accomplish. It literally, and you know, they've done brain scans, CT scans on people meditating, long-term meditators, monks, so on and so forth, where when you meditate, you actually shift all of the neuron networks into the back lobe of the brain out of the prefrontal cortex. And this activates your theta and delta brainwave activity. So literally, the prefrontal cortex deals with more of our ego, which ego, everyone has it, and welcome to being human. But it deals more with like our emotional self, our attachments, our self-identity, the human collective consciousness. The back lobe deals with your subconscious, the theta and delta, the universal collective consciousness. This is where you're able to intuitively, you know, navigate yourself much easier, I should say. So yeah, mindfulness, mindful of awareness, just starting to observe yourself from different perspectives, and you can do that with meditation, hypnotherapy. But let's talk about like it can be so much easier than you think. Like, because one of my favorite things, which is proven to be true over and over again, is like you start really just paying attention to one thing. It doesn't matter what it is, just one thing that maybe you know you should be a little bit more aware of. And you start to make the adjustment there in whatever way that looks like. And the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It's like you really focus your intention on accomplishing one aspect, and that's going to give you the energetic foundation to start showing up for your life and yourself in that way in all aspects. So
a important note on that, it's a personal thing. So even though the last couple days have been bad on this, but I was doing that with, I'd be somebody that never really fully made my bed.
Yeah.
Right? And is, sorry, I'm being honest.
I was like, where's she going with this?
Okay, but I said, okay, I'm going to make my bed every day. And that one little thing of a 2-minute process literally shifted things. Because anytime I would come home and my bed's clean and going into the bed at night, everything's made and the sheets are like that, it like does something. But that one little thing of showing that I'm worth it and to take that step to have need and organization. Because so when Annelise is saying how you do one thing is how you do everything. Well, if I'm sloppy in life and I'm showing that I don't care and I'm showing that it's more important to show up for others than it is for myself because my bed is just for me, then, you know, like, it's like, what else is going on? But if I'm making my bed, making my room beautiful each and every day before I leave the house, even if it's only me that's going back into it.
Yeah, that's how you're showing up.
That's how I'm showing up. And I'm being more neat and organized and being more detailed, which then bled into other areas of my life, being more detailed and organized and a little bit more conscientious of how I show up and how I leave things, right?
Yeah, because really, again, and I said this earlier, but it all comes back to receiving. And it really comes back to, like, what is the value of you? And, like, what is your value? And the value systems are going to be different for everyone. Like, what is important to one person will not be important to others, we spoke about. That's why there's no such thing as truth. It's all perspective. But at the end of the day, like, it comes back to just value. Like, what are you worth? What do you want to care about? And I love that you use the bed analogy because it is real. Right?
And it's super simple. It's one little thing and it literally was changing my life.
Yeah, it's just because you're just making a choice to show up for yourself in a bigger way. And it can be the simplest things. And one big subject that always comes up with mindfulness, because obviously there's a huge grouping of things that come together with that term. It's very, loose-ended. And nutrition is something that comes up a lot in sessions with my clients. It was a huge thing that came up in my life. And truly, like, I honestly don't believe that there is one way to eat that is the right way. It just really depends on so many things, like where you're at energetically, where you're at mentally and emotionally, where you're at in your awareness of self and so on. How much do you accept the body? How much do you deny the body? Like, there's so many components.
And all the nutrients. Do you have a surplus in certain vitamins and minerals? Are you depleted? What season is it? Because,
very real.
If the sun's shining out and you're spending more time outside, you're getting a lot more vitamin D, other things.
Absolutely.
There's so much.
For sure, of course. And it's incredible because, well, that's a whole other subject about seasonal eating, which is a real thing as well. But the point being is, again, like, if you get too caught on the externals of, like, okay, I got to do X, Y, and Z, and that's how I'm going to change myself, you're not actually doing the work.
That's actually, because you said something earlier that hit and was like, where, like, some people will say, like, I did this and this and I meditated every day for this amount of time and nothing changed. Well, if you're doing anything in order to, even if you're having conversations with friends, family members, other people, if you're doing anything in order to get some kind of result and you're attached to that result, you're literally pushing it away.
Yeah, too, and I would like to, like, go deeper into that because I totally hear you, but I think this is important to expand a little bit deeper for people. Like, by human nature, we're always going to do something for some result, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a fact. But what I hear you saying is, if you're doing it to actually find a way to, like, value yourself or, like, get approval or validation and really doing things from a more surface level of just, like, if I do this algorithm, then I should, then
it's going to compute this thing. And that's where, like, if I'm going to show up and I'm going to meditate these 10 minutes every day and I'm just going to rush through the meditation, you're never present for it. Just like if you play a game and the outcome is only to win. Right? Now, you can have desires for your outcome, and I think that's what Annelise is saying. But if you're doing it and you're so attached to only a one-sided thing, and it's only to get past the next phase, like, I'm going to be nice to you, and I'm going to give you this in order to just be nice, and then whatever the case may be, right? Or the meditation example of somebody sitting there every day for 10 minutes meditating or whatever and not getting it. Did they actually sit in the peace? Were they doing the meditation to actually feel the meditation?
Yeah.
And if you're just trying to race through something to say that you've done it, do you actually absorb it? You know, if somebody like, I mean, and I'm guilty of this, sometimes I interview people and I have to read their books. Sorry. Sorry,
but
no. I mean, like a lot of it, like, but if I feel rushed and I'm just like, I have to read the book before I interview somebody, I feel like I'm just going real fast through it, and I'm doing it in order to read the book to say that I read the book, not to actually read the book.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And what that really comes down to is the need for approval.
Well, yeah. But if I read the book, I would absorb it better, but as a result, I don't absorb it as much. Do you see the point being? You know, so I'm not getting the information as much. Just as a person, if they're going through and they're going to say they're going to do a 3-month meditation thing, and they show up and they do the meditation, but they had never really immersed themselves in it. Now, you can do it because you say you're going to do it and you put it as a goal, but allow yourself to immerse yourself in it.
And so how do you immerse yourself in it? Because these are always the questions I get from clients, but how? Like, I'm trying. And I think that if I were to do the best I could to articulate that into language, because it has so much to do with energy, like, which is an unseen, it's kind of like a hard thing to find terminology to allow yourself to just energetically get to a certain state. Everyone's capable of doing it, but I would like to use like a personal example. It's like, okay, so the motivation to show up for something can be there, and it will be there. That's how we operate. We become motivated to make transitions or whatever. So the motivation and the intention can be there of what you're trying to accomplish, but what you need to do, or not need, but what to consider when you're creating the motivation or the intention around these things is really just learning how to accept yourself where you're at is the starting point. Where it's like, okay, like ultimately I know that just by watching other people that there is a certain place that I can get to, or a certain level that I can accomplish. But I really get there by, being proactive, you know, being disciplined or whatever, you know, creating routines. That's true. But what all of that really means is you're just learning to learn yourself and accept yourself where you're at, and understanding that you're going to go on your own individual journey, and that it's really about going in and just accepting yourself where you're at, learning to love all components, both the shadow and the light, and understand everyone is the duality. Meeting yourself at that place, and then just keeping with the discipline and the routine of showing up for yourself, the action of going in the direction that you want to go. And it's going to change constantly. Because like one huge thing for me is I was vegan for like a solid 3 years, and I was like, I'm never gonna eat meat again. Like, this is never gonna happen. Blah, blah, blah. On my little high horse, like, do, do, do. Anyways, I'm not an advocate for telling anyone how to eat. This is my personal journey, just so we're clear, okay? Yeah. So no offense, anybody. But for me, I spent pretty much all of 2019 nomadic, traveling around the world and like moving around different states and whatever. So there was a lot of ungroundedness within my energy. Like I found myself just constantly being uprooted and having to adapt into new spaces energetically. And one thing I found very interesting that was coming up, because obviously, you know, we are constantly changing, was I started to feel my body's need to want to eat meat again and like have this grounding component in my diet to keep me, especially with as much energy work that I do and going into those quantum fields every day. It was something that my body started asking for. And at first there was so much guilt and shame around that. I was like, I can't bring that back into my body. Like, what's going on? And I started to judge myself, and I started to think like, oh man, I must have really fallen far from the graces of God. Like, how could I be here again? And then I all of a sudden realized, oh, there's the problem. Yeah. I'm not accepting the truth of where I'm at and honoring what my body is telling me I need to do to just go on whatever journey I need to go on. And the real work has nothing to do with the external of what I'm eating and what I'm not eating. The real work is the acceptance of loving myself where I am. Yeah, and loving yourself where you're at, and as you were saying before, of how to like accept and be present is also like, is to be present and in the now and choose to want to do the things that you're doing. Instead of a task list of to-dos that say, I need to get where I want to go. Totally. Like to say, I want to do this.
I want to.
I deserve more instead of
yeah.
I'm so little that I need to be something else. I deserve more.
And then I'm already that person.
Totally.
I'm already that, experience, but also, that if you can take a step and be present, that anything worth doing is worth fully investing in and being present to, and choosing the I want instead of I have to. And it's not that you're checking off to-do lists or you're forcing yourself into something, that you're really embracing it because it's what you want. And it's listening to yourself, like Annelise is saying, like, wherever you are is perfect, and
accepting yourself. It's just accepting yourself. Okay, so maybe I like to eat Pop-Tarts at night. Okay, this is something that's happened to me in quarantine. I don't know why, but I can't stop eating them, and whatever, they're good. But the point is just accepting yourself where you are, and actually this is something that I learned from Matt Kahn, which is great if you guys want to check his videos out, where he really says, again, and I can't help but reiterate this too, and it's been such a beneficial tool in my life, it is so sound for operating, is just like laughing at yourself and not taking it so serious. And that is actually giving you a stronger foundation to be like, there I go. Isn't this funny? Sneaking a Pop-Tart at midnight, getting crumbs all in my bed as I watch Indiana Jones. This is real. And the thing is, instead of being like, oh, I'm a slob, or I can't believe I'm putting these impurities in my body, how dare I, just start to acknowledge, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe this isn't serving me. Maybe this isn't honoring me. Or maybe it is.
Yeah.
And that's, so just accepting yourself where you're at and bringing more love to those areas, and does that love will give you the energy to be like, I'm good on the Pop-Tarts, I deserve more than that, or maybe it's exactly what I deserve.
In essence, it's stop judging yourself and really allowing yourself to view these obstacles as opportunities, and see where you go. Remember, your journey is your journey. This isn't a race of anywhere, and
there's no one way.
There's no one way, and just be glad that your story, that your writing of your life is one you're happy to tell, and fill it with as much excitement as you desire, and as much narrative as you wish.
And I think, just for the closing statement here in regards to this transition and trying to find adaptability to the new abnormal, is just understanding, I know that the polarity that we spoke about, it's there's these dualities within us energetically of really feeling oh my gosh, I can level up now. I really can. And then also feeling I suck. I can't do this. I just want to sleep, whatever. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not going to be the same for everyone. Some people are going to be at a position where this is a time of action, and that's what they're meant to do. And for some people, this is going to be a time where this is a time for non-action. This is a time for rest. This is a time for just being and allowing yourself to recalibrate energetically. And I just, really want you to know that whoever this pertains to that's watching it, you're okay. Stop judging yourself. Stop comparing yourself to other people's journeys. You are your own journey. And learn that this time is about becoming your inner authority and accepting yourself. Being truthful with where you are, and making adjustments in your root chakras, your foundations, your stability, by accepting yourself where you are and really seeing what does not deserve your energy and time anymore, and being bold to make that transition. And what can you give more of your energy to that's actually been trying to come in? And that is so important for everyone to just meet themselves at that place, okay? So, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being a part of this class. We hope to see you at the next one.